Calumet Editions, an eclectic publisher of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, introduced a new business model nearly a decade ago, in which the publisher and author work as equal partners in a joint venture. Their stable of authors have won numerous and prestigious prizes across literary forms. Where traditional publishers fail to see the value in projects, Calumet cooperates with its authors in realizing a book's potential.
Welcome once again to Writer's Corner. Alan Miller with you. We have two award-winning writers. Minnesota seems to have so many of them. Returning, he's been here once before, and to talk about his new book is Jeff Burton, who's on my right. And we have a different type of a writer, a woman who's won a bunch of awards for some outstanding short stories, Jayna Locke, and she's going to write a novel one of these days because it's a shame to waste that talent just on short stories.
Oh, I don't think it's wasted, Alan.
Okay, there you go. So, how did you get into short stories? Everything from 100 words to quite a few words.
Yes, well, I have been writing short stories all of my life. And I think the first one was 4th grade. But it's only in the last 5 years that I actually got a Master of Fine Arts in writing a little while after college. And so it's been a love of mine for a very long time.
Where was college?
College was in Oregon. My father was a professor of theater at Lewis and Clark College.
Oh.
And so, in fact, I would say that was the origins of my love of story, is what I saw on the stage, right? Because a playwright and actors and directors come together to captivate you with a story on stage. And I loved that ability to captivate an audience. And I'm not a theater person, but I found my gift in writing, in words, and so all of my life I've loved to write, and but as I say, only in the last 5 years have I finally done a deep dive, and I'm teaching writing, I'm publishing short stories in different literary journals, and now finally I just have my first book.
And won some awards, and yes, somewhere in Minnesota, which is right here, and we'll talk about it. Now, Jeff, on the other hand, goes to the dogs.
I guess I do, but I did cut my eye teeth writing short stories. Years ago, my daughter was young, I was working full time and too terrified to do anything beyond a short story, but I think that's where I learned. I learned and I made every mistake humanly possible and hopefully learned. And I had a lot of really great 3,000 word short stories in like 6,000 or 7,000 words. So I had to learn how to whittle them down and make every single sentence count. And the dialogue tags, I had some interesting ones back then, and I've since kind of learned to kind of filter them to said and maybe replied and a few of the other ones, and not have some of the silly ones that I was plugging in randomly. But learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, and hopefully it made me a little better.
One of the things Jayna mentioned before we went on air was the fact that you work in humor into your articles, into your stories.
Yeah. I think some dark humor now and again, or if there's a character that's a little flippant, helps relieve the tension and, keeps people involved and interested and keeps the pages turning.
What was the inspiration for starting the book instead of just the short stories?
Well, the book is a collection of my short stories. They have a few things in common. One is that they all take place in Minnesota. So the book is not really about Minnesota, but Minnesota with its lakes and its crazy winters and kind of wild weather patterns makes a nice backdrop for stories of grit and resilience. So, I've been writing.
Saying goodbye to a campground.
Sure, I'm inspired. I'm going to go right home and write that one. No, I love the lakes. I love the shores. I love, our insane weather patterns. And so you combine that with interesting characters and the crazy things they're experiencing, and and they can be inspired by all kinds of things. Like, I work from writing prompts, for example. Like, one of our writing prompts in our writing group was the word key. And so that inspired a story that takes place on the North Shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota, where a woman is walking along the beach. She's being very contemplative. She has just lost her mother, and she's back in her hometown where she grew up, and she walks toward the beach, and there's a body on the beach. And she goes and she's like, what do I do? And she tries to look for some ID in the coat, and she finds this key. And that's what launches the story.
Have you, by any chance, read David Housewright's new book?
No.
It starts off with finding of a body.
I love it. I will run right out and buy that one.
Now, where'd you get involved with all the dogs?
Well, kind of
I'm a dog person, as you know. I
know.
love dogs.
Yeah. You've got that book you gave me that I enjoy. We've always been, my wife and I have always been dog people. But I was actually on jury duty, and I wound up, here I've got to drive over to Hastings. And even though my wife's an attorney, my dad's an attorney, and when they kind of grill you for being on jury duty, I kept saying attorney over and over again, even though I'm not one, hoping that would get me off, at least according to some of the John Grisham books.
Yeah.
And they picked me. I was getting my bags. I was all ready to get out the door, and they're Jeff Burton. I'm like, but I said attorney. Let me go. And so I wound up being on a real complex real estate case. And the first full day of the jury duty, I'm driving in, and on the radio, they're talking about some gentleman had walked it away from assisted living or a care facility, and that they were calling out the cadaver dogs, the human remains detection dogs. And so when you're on jury duty, you have a lot of hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. And so I just started.
Said, who's writing about cadaver dogs?
I said,
nobody.
I've seen the, explosives, the drugs, and all sorts of different kinds. And I thought, well, what about, human remains detection dogs? And so even though they give you a yellow legal pad to fill out, which I did, but the last page, I was writing down ideas for the book. And when the trial was over, the judge came in, he thanked us, and then he said, the bailiff will be here in a minute to get your yellow pads. So I had to, suddenly I'm 13 again, trying to sneak the last thing out and shove it in my pocket without getting contempt of court or, So, and folks have I get emails from people that have telling me all about their different dogs and everything, and so it's all great fun. It's been a fun ride.
And you had 3 really with the cadaver dogs, but your new one is a little bit different, The Dead Years. You really have a brother and sister.
Right.
But their dog is certainly instrumental also.
Their dogs are instrumental. They may not be the front burner, maybe a little more on the back burner. But I've got an idea drawer in the kitchen, and it's nothing sexy. It's just where I open the drawer and I toss my car keys and my wallet when I come and go. And during COVID, my wife and I would stream just endless shows and a lot of true crime documentaries. And so where The Dead Years came from is I had written down on a piece of scratch paper, what happens if a serial killer is not happy with his portrayal in a Netflix documentary? And I tossed that in the drawer, but I still had another book or two to do for St. Martin's. And so that thing kept looking at me. Every time I open the drawer, it's peeking up at me. And then, I don't know, a year or two ago, I was able to actually sit down and write the Dead Years with a new cast of characters
And dogs.
and dogs.
Yeah.
And dogs.
Well, Katie, my Springer, has
yeah.
got a much more
Yes.
prominent. She's got a much more prominent role in my new book, which is about 80% finished now.
Excellent.
And it's on censorship and book banning.
Oh, okay, so it's nonfiction? Or?
And it's fiction. It can't be classed as a thriller because it's more just a novel.
Okay.
But hopefully
Did
be
he
out
inspire
pretty soon.
you with his dog stories?
No, I've always been a dog person also.
Yeah.
And rescues only, and a series of them. Ideas, where do your ideas come from?
Well, as you mentioned, prompts. And then I love just observing people. And, you know, you might see someone walking along a sidewalk, you know, with a strange gait or looking down or something. And I think, what's their story? And then I also like to ask a lot of what if questions. What if someone went to Italy just, you know, to escape a horrible breakup just as COVID was starting and was exploding there? What was it like? So, you know, you mentioned research, I think, in an email we had, and the importance of that. And that was an opportunity to research, because even though COVID was such recent history, I discovered that there were so many details I either didn't know because it was, you know, different things happen in different places around the world. But when exactly did this happen? Did that happen? Did things start to really explode in Italy? And so that was kind of an interesting story for me to write, because it was inspired by COVID. It was inspired by one person's story and kind of how they experienced the escalation and what was happening with all the events at the time.
And in the back of your book, you have book club discussion questions.
Yes.
Which not everybody does, but you know,
No,
I found that writers who do that really inspire book clubs to look at their books, etc.
I love book clubs. I'm involved in 2 book clubs. I read about 40 books a year, and so I think facilitating discussion is a wonderful thing for an author to do. I mean, as I was thinking about all these stories, I thought, well, why is this character motivated to do this? You know, what would make someone think that way? And so those, you know, naturally lead to some good things to talk about, right?
You know, I was really disappointed on how I did a lot of book clubs pre-COVID. And then COVID kind of knocked those out for a little bit. And I had never been a member of a book club. And so, you know, when I showed up at my first one, you know, I had copious notes, and I'm like, well, what am I going to be like, the professor talking for? And I come in, and on their island is all sorts of food. You
And
know,
wine.
They've got pizza, and they've got booze. They've got booze.
Of course.
And I'm like, for me? And, you know, at some point, everybody would walk into the living room, and they're like, Jeff, we're ready. And I'll be right there, you know. And I'm so lucky that I never had to, like, call my wife to have her drive across the city to pick me up and then come back the next day to get my car. Because, like you said, yeah, there's, some wine? Oh, okay, we'll have, you know. So, yeah, I really, really miss those. But I'd be a lot heavier.
I like to do presentations to book clubs more than, you know, going into a bookstore and sitting there for a couple of hours to sign some books and things like that. I don't know what your experience is in that regard, but book clubs really get into it, and especially they read your book before you get there, and it just is very beneficial in terms of me. That's my favorite way to introduce my book.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, and as you and I were talking earlier about Zoom. I mean, I've done Zoom with bookstores around the country, and, you know, it's just kind of so different because you don't have the human interaction right in front of you. And so you're hoping you're coming across and there's not dead air and you're just going, oh, well, this is looking weird. And I think a funny one that I had with an online book club was one of the people had wound up going to my high school only 20 years earlier. So we kind of stopped everything and talked about that for a while, you know.
Oh, fun.
But yeah. So I mean, it is kind of, I enjoy library talks, and I just love book clubs.
Yeah, library talks also. And you say you're in 2 book clubs?
Yes.
Not talking about your books necessarily, or your
No,
book.
although my book club people are reading my book, and that's been delightful because it's been very confidence inspiring because they love the book and they've given me so much wonderful feedback. You know, as a writer, you kind of write in a vacuum, as they say, and so to finally get that feedback and to know that people really enjoy your stories is thrilling. So you've been at it much longer than me, Jeff, but this is a brand new book. It's only just a few months out, so yeah.
And
so
what's next?
Well, I am currently working on a new collection of short stories, and yes, I will one day write a novel. I'm pretty sure of that. But the next, so this is really kind of solidly in the literary fiction genre. The next collection is really genre stories, which there's some murder mysteries and some ghost stories and some magical realism, and it's called the Wimden Chronicles, and Wimden is a fictional town in Minnesota that does not exist. Yeah.
And everything happens around that?
Everything happens in Wimden, yes.
Oh, very interesting. Jeff, what's on the docket for you?
The Dead Years came out in March, and the second book, called The Second Grave, comes out in February, and then
now, is that a continuation of The Dead Years?
It is.
The same characters?
It is the same characters.
So you did the trilogy with the Finders, and now this is...
And now in fact, this week I signed with Severn House for a third novel in the series. So, you know, and I never really started out, when I wrote the Finders, it was a, you know, kind of, it was done. It was, hey, here's a book, it's done, but then, you know, the publisher is like, they want to have a series, and your agent, of course, wants to have a series, because, and so I did that, and then The Dead Years also was kind of, you know, basically, well, here's the idea on you know, the guy not being happy with his documentary and what happens then. But they liked it, and they said, well, can we give you a 2-book deal? And whenever a publisher says they want to sign you to 2 books, there's one answer.
Yes.
Yes. And
where's the paper?
Where's the paper?
Now, do you have an agent?
Not yet.
Because
no.
I don't have one either, and although I'm on my 3rd novel, but you have an agent.
I have an agent. I had, years ago, I had, you know, an agent for about a week and a half. You know, I had a book several books ago, and I was so excited because sometimes getting an agent can be very, very difficult.
Sometimes more difficult than publishing a book.
Publishing the book. And so the guy, you know, I was so excited, and then he ran it by some major houses, and they kind of declined it, and then he dumped me, and I'm like, but a month ago I was excited, and now you're, you know. And so, I mean, it's
I'm guessing he's regretting his choice now.
Oh, I hope so. I can only hope so.
You know, there is an adage in the business. I taught screenwriting for quite a while, and you know, I have a lot of unpublished screenplays. But if you present it to somebody who was working in the studio the readers, they're usually kids who just came out of college. And if they say it's great and it's not, they lose their job. So turning them down, which is similar to your experience, is more successful to keeping your job, but not necessarily, passing on a good screenplay. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way the system works.
Right.
And so, where do you find a publisher?
So this book is published through a hybrid publisher right in this area, Kirkhouse Publishers. And
Very good people.
Yes.
They're very helpful.
Yes.
And
lovely. Do all of that back end stuff that
did they
keeps
do
you
the
from actually-
editing and the line editing for you also?
No, I am my own editor. I'm an expert editor, so I edit my own work. But they did all of that, all of the paperworky kind of things, and ISBN number and all of that. And they also have a printing house, and so they are able to print on demand and things like that. So there was just a lot of nice benefits of working with them.
Good people.
Good people, yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And yours is different now. You're overseas.
I am overseas with the Dead Years. Severn House is a crime imprint of Canongate books. And they've been around about 50 years, and they're in London. And I was telling you earlier, I've got family over there, so I'm thinking maybe I can take a trip and just have coffee with them and then write off the entire trip. So hopefully you don't have any IRS agents watching the show.
That's what writers do.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly legitimate.
It is legitimate. Yeah.
We were just in Portugal earlier this year. So Portugal will be in my next book.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Nice.
But
Well, Jayna, could I just, you're teaching creative writing, short stories. What are some of the stuff that you try to tell them? Shake their arms and say.
I think the writing process is so intriguing, isn't it? I mean, we all think, there's got to be some formula for the perfect story. What's that formula? And you think, well, you've got to have great characters, and you've got to have a good storyline, and the storytelling itself. You've got to have, there's some mechanics, right, that make it work. But what I find is so hard to teach is, and I wanted to tell you this, that I just mentioned before we started that I just finished reading The Finders, and I thought, this is like, I could use this as a teaching tool. It's like the perfect story because it has all the mechanical stuff. It's engaging, it flows, it's compelling. The main character is fantastic. But there is something that a really great writer brings to the storytelling that is so hard to teach, and it's that little bit of magic. So what is that? I tell people, add a layer, put something surprising in there. Let's shake it up. You think, okay, we have to get character from point A to B to C, right? And then, you've got your beginning, middle, and end. But there's so much more to it than that, right? Like, how do we engage, delight, and entertain the reader while telling that story?
and learn to edit.
And learn to edit, yes.
I used to believe that anything that I wrote was written in stone, and therefore you couldn't touch it. And boy, you have to disabuse yourself of that belief early on.
Well said.
Research and editing are so helpful to writing.
Yes. Well, and they say kill your darlings, right? I mean, what does that even mean, right? You shouldn't just wipe things out because it's too precious to you. Sometimes a precious thing is precious for a good reason, right? But to be judicious and to say, does this add to the story? Does this move the story forward? Does it help the reader to really stay engaged in the story, right? So there are a lot of things that go into what do you edit out.
And this has become very important because we have a lot of people who have picked up this show, even though it's only a year and a half old, and everybody thinks that they're a writer, And everybody can be a writer, but they have to be willing to take the frustration and do the editing and, you know, copy after copy after copy. Throw it away if you don't like it, if there's a problem with it.
And that is one thing that I tell people is, you know, okay, so you've written this story, you've done a kind of an edit to get it cleaner, to get it to flow and all those things. Read it again with after time away, you know, and take time. Don't rush. There's no reason to rush. Take time to read it again and to find the flaws and have a fresh perspective. And then when you think it's done, read it again.
And then research. Obviously, you had to do a lot of research on cadaver dogs and get that experience.
I mean,
the research is so important.
I'm a geek. I'm a research geek, and I mean, it's just amazing. Dogs are supernatural. 300 million scent receptors, whereas we just have 5 million. And I went to Twisters in the movie theater the other day, and I just had a popcorn. You know, you've got the popcorn smell, and maybe, you know, you can smell burning leaves and if your milk goes bad. But once I hit double digits, I run out of what I can ascertain that smell is, whereas dogs hit thousands. They're little databases. And they're also just swashbucklers. I mean, until they're into their middle age, you see them take off after a rabbit. They're like, you know, just crazy. They're like Errol Flynn in The Adventures of Robin Hood. And I got to even tell my wife we had an Australian Shepherd that we have an upper yard and a lower yard. And every year or two, I have to say, did Amber truly fly from the upper one and, you know, plummet, you know, however many and hit the ground and kept running? She goes, yes, that happened. And I'm like, I'd be in a wheelchair, you know.
And believe it or not, we have gone through our half hour. It goes so quickly.
It does.
Wow.
Jeff Burton, whose latest book is right there in front of us, The Dead Years. Jayna Locke, first time here, and you'll come back again.
I'd love to.
Enjoy. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Somewhere in Minnesota. And Writer's Corner is signing off.